In July 1967, I'm Darrell Clausen. I just turned 20 and I got my 1A draft notice, although I was opposed to the war. And since I had 5 years of Russian, I joined the Army Security Agency and I ended up writing this novel, Flower Soldier, years and years later, because it's a semi autobiographical novel based on my Army experiences in Thailand. And it's the tale of a U.S. enlisted man, Garrick Haynes, who's captured by the enemy and his growing sense of empathy with his female guard, who's an NBA logistics officer named Senior Lieutenant Lay. So I served 4 years and I wrote this novel as a way to reconcile my opposition to the Vietnam War. Because some think that a love story about enemies sounded impossible, but I imagined one. The weird thing is that when I finished the book, I found out that there actually was a woman. It was uncannily similar to Lieutenant Lee. She was a young, beautiful female NBA logistics officer. She spoke 4 languages. And I found this out from a guy named Denver Shannon, who was a combat soldier and a LERP, who helped capture her during a firefight in Cambodia, and he served as her guard. So I'm convinced in interviews I had with him that he later fell in love with her, though he never confirmed it. That when he shared his story with me and helped me authenticate some of the fighting scenes, I decided to dedicate the book to him. So at the beginning it says, to Denver Shannon, who never had a chance to see his flower grow. The book is called Flower Soldier. So thus what began as an impossible love story between a female NVA officer and a U.S. enlisted man was not so impossible after all. This is from my novel, Flower Soldier. When Garrett Haynes stepped out of the 4-engined military transport, the thick, odoriferous Bangkok air shook an ancient part of his brain and brought it alive, like a dragon awakening from sleep. He took in the hot, shimmering airport tarmac and rolled up the sleeves of his Army uniform and threw his duffel bag over one shoulder before starting down the passenger ramp. On the runway, his tongue darted over dry lips, trying to taste what new stimuli affected him. Something visceral stuck in his throat, some unidentified physical response to the jumbled odor of burning incense, charcoal, cooking grease, and all mixed together with the acrid stench of kerosene and diesel fuel. The afternoon sun glowed in the humid sky like a blurry heat lamp, and he started to sweat. He couldn't define what was happening to him, but by the time he crossed the runway and reached the Air Force transit bus, he was preternaturally alert. His heightened state of awareness made him vigilant and wary of his surroundings. The ride from the airport only increased his sensory overload. A swarm of motorcycles buzzed around the bus like hornets. From his open window, the thick traffic shifted around their vehicles so quickly it made him dizzy. He feared someone would get crushed. Bicycle bells clanging, engines revving, taxi horns honking, a continuous cacophony bombarded him from every direction. His eyes smarted, and he coughed at the stinking clouds of diesel fumes and perfumed incense smoke. Primitive survival mode began to dominate his perceptions, and by the time he reached the U.S. Air Force Transit Barracks, his concept of civilization was altered forever. Inside the barracks, Garrick stuffed his duffel bag into a locker and began to pace back and forth between his assigned bunk and a window. He stopped once to wash his hands and face, but returned to pacing. The sights, sounds, and smells of the bus ride kept him hyperactive, and he didn't know what to do or how to stand down. But he needed to do something physical, something he could understand and would take him right into the heart of things. A local restaurant, even with a cold beer, offered no attraction, nor did the prospect of a movie or a museum tour as recommended by the USO. No, he needed something to involve himself physically, something to challenge his senses and his body, get him attuned to start assimilating the strangeness around him. A kickboxing match seemed just the thing. He sought one of the houseboys to aid him in his quest. The houseboy was a thin, middle-aged man with receding hairline and sunken cheekbones. Garrick found the man sitting on the floor of the barracks, cross-legged and barefoot, polishing a combat boot from a stack piled next to him. "Hey man, about a little help? Do you know how I can get to see some kickboxing?" The man stared at him without comprehension. "You know, kickboxing." Here, Garrett held his arms up in a boxer's stance and danced around like a fighter in the ring. He spun with a high roundhouse kick and then dropped his hands, staggered back, and fell to the ground as if struck by a knockout blow. He raised his eyebrows. The houseboy's eyes lit up, and he reached for the dictionary which lay beside him. Garrett eagerly crowded at his shoulder while the man licked his thumb, searching for the page he wanted. Finally, he raised his head and offered the book triumphantly. Heroin? He asked. Garrett's face dropped. What the? No, I don't want any heroin, you idiot. Jesus Christ. He frowned and turned away, stunned. Was this something a lot of American personnel asked of their houseboys? What in the world would make them want to take drugs? It was just one more unsettling difference between Bangkok and the life he knew at home. That experience psychologically separated him even more from the comfort of his homeland. He was 10,000 miles away now and in a different world. None of the cultural rules he was used to applied here. This was Bangkok, where orange-robed monks roamed the streets and fierce dragon statues guarded stone temples with sharp fangs and spiked tails. Street hawkers pushed carts piled high with exotic foodstuffs and left a trail of baffling, nauseous odors. The streets were filled with local Thai people slurping soup noodles next to fluorescent-colored posters of bloody demons or beneath billboards of giant Buddhist images. Monstrous faces seemed to glare at him everywhere. Soon enough, Garrett would learn that here, survival was uppermost in the minds of millions of these people, and that many of them coped with reality only with the help of drugs or prayer. It was no wonder that kickboxing was a national sport. It offered a violent escape from the harsh realities of life. This was Garrett's new world. For the first time in his life, he entered a world where the most primitive aspects of survival dominated. Like many U.S. Army personnel sent here, he would find his perspectives and values challenged, and he'd be left on his own to cope. His first night, he stood looking out the window, worried and unsettled as he waited for dawn and his assignment up country. In the morning, he would fly 300 miles north to the area known as Isan, the poorest part of Thailand. The villages were even without electricity and tap water there. Only late that evening would he finally get to sleep on a comfortable mattress atop an iron bunk. The warm blankets and the cool hum of air conditioning gave him the illusion he was safely home. He could never have expected what his future would bring in the morning. The book is available on Amazon, either in Kindle or hard copy version. You can look it up under the name Flower Soldier, and my name is Darrell Clausen. It's Darrell, Clausen. I have a website, but the best way to get it is through Amazon. I've written a second book too that's also available on Amazon, and it's called Chasing Rubies, if you can see that. And I'll read the quick back of it. A one called Czar is caught between the world of legitimacy and an unscrupulous past. Vowing to avoid the fate of his associates, jail, drugs, and death, he sets his longing for a ruby and a chance to redeem his life. But to obtain what he desperately wants, he must embrace the very life he's trying to avoid and discover what really matters most. This book takes place in Asia also, mainly in Laos, Thailand, and some Vietnam. My third book's not published yet, but all these books are available on Amazon, as I'm sure the third one will be.